Hi everyone. Sorry for the audio troubles we had earlier today. This is going to move kind of fast, so just try to hit pause when you need to and use the cheat sheet that I created on the classroom assignment. The first thing you need to go to is the student links page and then click on Scratch. Hopefully you saved your work last week, and when you finish today, don't forget to save before you close this because it'll be lost forever and you'll have to redo it. So the first thing I'm going to do is load from my computer. What you should choose is the one that is probably the first one, the one that's on top. This is the one I worked on earlier today, so I'm going to start with the one before that so you can see where to get the codes from. So I'm going to click on this one, but you normally would pick the one with the highest number. These are previous projects that I've worked on. And as you can see, I've renamed this one so that it was easier to find, which you can do also. You just would go into the downloads folder and then click this to rename it. So this is the one I'm going to open. The first thing I'm going to do before I even mess around with the PacMan and whatnot is I'm going to click on my backdrops because that's where I'm going to hide some of my secret codes, the codes that I want to share with everybody else. So the first thing I want to do is click on events and then drag this flag over. That's the go flag. So when I hit go, what do I want to happen? I want to broadcast to all of my sprites that this game is getting ready to start. So I drag over this broadcast message, not the wait one, but the regular one. And we are going to click a new message that says start. Also, we want to make sure that we set our score to 0, but we don't have a score, and we want to set our lives to 0. Our lives will start with 0 and count up. And so 0 lives really means that we have 3 lives. And then 1 life will mean that we've lost a life. So it's just easier to work the code this way. But we don't have any code that says that, so we need to make them. So we go over to this orange variable, and we're going to create our own. We're going to click on Make Variable. Now remember, if I'm going too fast, it's okay. Just hit pause. So we're going to make the first variable that says score, which we're not going to use right now. But we do want to, every time we start, we want to set our score to 0. We are going to make another variable that says lives. And we want to set our lives to 0. Now, we don't need to see our lives right here. We can if we want, but I'd rather do it like the regular PacMan game does that has 3 lives down here. So I don't need to see my lives. I'm going to change my lives. I'm going to unclick this to get rid of it. And then my score, I'm just going to kind of move out of the way. And that will do just fine. All right, so that's the first thing that we need to do. Now we're going to start changing our code to PacMan. All right. I'm going to move this ghost here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and give them, instead of Sprite 1, Sprite 2, I'm going to go ahead and change their names now. This blue one is called Inky. And now I'm going to move my PacMan to where I want him. I really want him to be right in the middle, so I'm going to set this X to 0, which I can do from right here. And of course, I'm going to change his name to PacMan. Now I need to start making some code to make it look like PacMan is moving. Now if you look at our costumes, we're only going to be using costume 1, 2, 3, and 4. But when we start the game, I want to make sure that this is not the one I see. I don't like the way that one looks to start my game. I want him to have a PacMan type shape. So that's the PacMan I want to see. So I need to make my code say that. So I'm going to go back to make sure I'm selecting PacMan. I'm going to, and by the way, we need to shrink them to size. So we need to go to events, and this time we're going to say when I receive start. That's why we set that code up earlier. When I receive the start, we're going to go to motion, and I want them to go to a specific place. Every time we start the game, I want them to go to the exact same place. I want them to go to 0, -45. Every time. And I want to change the way he looks. I want to make sure that when he starts, he switches his costume to costume number 2. I need to change his size because he's too big. So I'm going to set his size, which is right here also in the purple looks. And I'm going to set his size to 50%. I want him to be about half the size. And we can stop every once in a while and click this go and see if that works. And I've already tried this, so that I know that this 50% works, but yours might be different. You may have to set him to 10%, or it might be 70%. You have to see how he fits in these tunnels to make sure he fits. The next thing is I want to make sure that he's always pointing to the right and not pointing up, so I'm going to go back to motion, and I'm going to make sure that he's pointing in 90 degrees. Now again, if I'm going too fast, it's okay. You can go ahead and pause and use the cheat sheet too. Then, if you remember the game plays a little song at the beginning, so there's some parts of it that I want to wait. So we're going to go back to control, and we're going to have it wait a second before we start moving. We want to go back to looks, because sometimes when the game ends, we hide our PacMan. We want to make sure that he's not only showing, but he's on top. So in looks, down at the bottom, there's a show. And there's also one that says go to the front layer. We don't want him behind the power pellets. We want him on top of the power pellets. Now, this is where it starts getting a little tricky. We have some if statements. This is called an if-else statement. So we go to control. This is the darker orange. And we're looking for this if-else. I'm going to drag that over. And then we're going to go to the green operators and choose this one that is greater than. We want this, whatever's in here, greater than 50. We're going to change that 50 to say 1. And we want to go to our variables and drag this lives over. Okay, now what does this mean? If we have more than one life, if we have more than one life left, then we don't want to wait. You know, in the real game, when you when you don't have any lives, or excuse me, when you have 3 lives and at the beginning of the game it plays the song, we want to wait for that song. But if you've lost a life and you go back and you're starting over again, we want it to start right away. So if it's in the middle of the game, we're not going to wait any seconds. But if it's the beginning of the game, we're going to wait 4 seconds. Okay? Now, we're going to add this forever, and we have to make the illusion that our PacMan is chomping. So what this is an animation. So we need to put this forever in. We want this to do this all the time, and we're going to go to looks. And we want to change our costume. We started with costume 2, but we want it to go to costume 3. And then we want to wait, but not very long. We want to wait. We just want to wait, and I've done some practicing with this, 0.04 seconds, 0.04 of a second. That's pretty fast. Now you may want yours to go faster. So you might do 0.1, or you want it to go slower, 0.6, 0.06, 600. So you just want to play around with it to see what looks good for you. For me, this is the one that looked good for me. So we're starting at costume 2, we went to costume 3. I can right-click here and duplicate just that part of the code, which I'm going to do, and put it there. I want to go from costume 3 to costume 4. And now you can kind of see he's moving, but I want it to be nice and smooth. So when we go to our costumes, you see it's going from 3 to 4, 3 to 4, 3 to 4. I want it to go 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So I'm going to go back to the code. I'm going to duplicate this code again. Now you see it duplicated both parts of it. And now I'm going to go to costume 1, because I want it to go 3, 4, 1, and then 2. So 3, 4, 1, 2. Now when I hit this button and it starts cycling through, it should look like a genuine PacMan there. And I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. Alright? But he's not actually moving, so now we need to give PacMan the code to move. So I'm going to drag over another event of when I receive start. And I'm going to make another one that looks kind of like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right click right here and duplicate it. and set it down right there. But this part, this forever part, I don't want this part, so I'm going to throw this away. I want my lives for this code. I don't want them to move again for another 5 seconds. So in this case, I want to say if my lives are greater than 0, then I'm going to wait 1 second. But otherwise, it'll wait 4 if it's a bit, or 5 if it's the beginning of the game. I want it to wait 5. So we're going to leave it like that. Now we're going to add a new forever code. So that's in controls. And now we need to start telling it to move. So we go in this motion, we're going to move 10 steps. Now if I tell it to move 10 steps, it's going to be pretty fast. It's going to go zoom, just like that. But I don't want it to do that. I want it to be in control. So we're going to move 3 steps. And then we need to add a bunch of if statements. So we're going to go to control. And this is an if, not an if else. And we need to sense if we're touching this blue, because I don't want my PacMan going through the wall. See, watch. If I tell it to go now, it'll go right through the wall. See, so I don't want that to happen. So I need it to sense whether it's touching a color. So I'm going to drag this touching color. And even though this is blue, this is not the same blue as my code. So I need to click on the color, click on this little eyedropper, and go over here to my maze to make sure I'm choosing the exact right color of blue. See the little square in the middle there? That's the color blue I want to choose. That way my PacMan will run into the wall and he won't do anything. Actually, he will right now because I didn't tell him what to do. I'm saying he's sensing whether he touches it, but now I need to tell him to move opposite of this 3. So I need to move in a -3, and I usually do a -3.1 because I want him to go back a little bit more so he doesn't get stuck. Okay, so that will cancel out the 3 steps forward. If he moves -3, that's like moving 3 steps backwards. Okay, so now when he runs into the wall, he should stop. But I'm not done because I want to make sure that when I hit my arrow keys that he actually is going to move. So I need to add an if, another if that goes under this orange, and we're sensing now for the key that I'm pressing. So if I press a key, and I'm going to change this to be up, I want him to change his direction. So I go back to motion, and I want to pointing in a different direction. Now, if we're talking directions, to the right is 90 degrees, to going down is 180 degrees, to the left is -90 degrees, and up is 0. So if I go up, if I hit the up button, I want to make sure that he goes up. Now, when I hit the up key, see, he goes up. I'm going to duplicate this one, put it under the orange, and now I'm going to do the same thing for down. Down is 180 degrees, so I drag this around, and now he's going down 180. So now if I hit down, I'll have to wait till I restart the program, but he'll go down. I'm going to go back to this and duplicate it again and add it on. So now if I go right, I want to make sure that he goes 90 degrees. That's the right direction. And if I hit left arrow, I want to make sure that he goes in the left direction, which is -90. Now, when I hit my green flag and it waits its 5 seconds to get started, then I can hit left, right, up, down, and he's going in. And this is a good way to test to see if your walls are far enough apart for your PacMan to work. If he's not going through these corridors, then you're going to have to change either the width of your walls, or you're going to have to make your PacMan a little bit smaller so he can fit through. Okay? Now we have one more thing to do. We have some tunnels on the left and on the right. Remember, the real PacMan game has a tunnel right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new tunnel, a new sprite, and we're just going to paint them. We're just looking for a thin rectangle with no outline. Okay? Something like this. And we want to make sure that you're not going to be able to see this. So see this little crosshair right here? We want to make sure that that crosshair goes into the crosshair that's here so that it has the right location. Okay? We don't want it to be, that's pretty good. We don't want it to be that tall. That's a little tall. So we want to make sure that that crosshair is in the right spot. And then we're going to drag it over to here. And I can change the way where it is in its location. 236 is pretty good, but I want it to be, because I tried this out earlier, I want it to be right here. Now if we look at this, I can zoom in. See how this is sticking out? We don't want that to stick out, because that means my PacMan, if he touches it by accident, he'll accidentally get sucked into that tunnel, which is not what we want. So I'm going to have to play around with this a little bit. I'm going to change this to negative 238. We'll see if that works a little bit better. When I look at it, that looks pretty good. So now I like it. I'm going to duplicate it. And this tunnel I'm going to call the left tunnel. And this one I will call the right tunnel. And it doesn't matter that it's purple. I don't really care that it's purple because I'm going to fill it in black later. And I'm just going to do the opposite of whatever this coordinates is. So this is negative 238. I'm going to change this to positive 238 since it should be about right. And then this was a negative 11. So let's zoom in and see. Those look pretty good. A little too much blue there. My PacMan might bounce off of that. So I'm going to change this one a little bit less. Let's say 236. That looks pretty good. All right. So now I'm going to go to my fill bucket. I'm going to change the color to black. So now you can't even see that tunnel. It looks like it's kind of a hole in the wall. And same thing with this one over here. Change him to black. Now we need to give PacMan one more set of codes so that what happens when he hits the tunnel. So when PacMan aims towards the tunnel, what we want him to do is glide out of screen, show up on the other side, and then glide to a location over here. So let's see what we're going to do. We're going to go to Events. When I receive start, okay, so let's finish this code. So when we hit start for our tunnel, we're going to do a control and a forever loop. And inside the control, we're going to have two ifs. If our PacMan is touching, so we need to go to sense, is touching our left tunnel, then what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to make sure that we're pointing in the left direction, so that's a motion. So we're going to point in the left direction. And then, again, when it's touching, we want it to glide off screen and then magically appear on the other side. So we need to tell our code to do that. So we want it to glide very quickly. So we're going to change this to 0.2 seconds. And we're going to change the X to be slightly off screen. So 245, actually this is a negative, so it's negative 245 is slightly off screen. And my Y is going to be the same Y as my my tunnel, so it was negative 11. We want to glide to that position. Then we want it to magically go straight to the other side of the screen, which is a positive 245, negative 11. Then we want it to glide again to a position right over here. So you're going to have to look over here to see what your right tunnels or let me hit stop. Uh, you're going to have to look here to see what this position is. You want to get as close to the wall as you can without touching it. So, and then you're going to want to put those coordinates there. This will be around 11. You still want that to be 11, so negative 11, or wherever your tunnel is. And then, but this is 215, like that. So now, when I go through my tunnel, it should pop up on the other side. Now, I've only done my left tunnel, so let's see if it works. There, that's not bad. But you see I don't have one for the right tunnel, so I'm going to have to duplicate that. And I'm going to change this to say right tunnel. And then I need to make sure that I'm having the direction point in the right direction. Everything's going to be opposite except for my Y's. So I see where I made a mistake here. I forgot to change this to 0.2. So 0.2, and then this one's going to be 0.2 also. All right. All of my negatives need to be positive. So this is going to say positive 245, not negative. This is going to have to say negative 245, not positive. And this is going to have to be negative 215, not positive. So now, when I go through the right tunnel, it should go to the left side. So let's see how this works. Now you see how that kind of sucked me into that tunnel right there? That's because my location of my tunnels are probably sticking out a little too far. So when my PacMan accidentally hits them, it's going right through that tunnel whether I want them to go or not. So I need to start playing around with the location, the X's of my left and right tunnel. So that was 236. I'll try 237. Let's see how that works. There. So now you see my PacMan's gliding right along the side, but it's not going in there unless I tell it to go through. And it's getting stuck a little bit, so sometimes you just have to play around with it. See how it goes. Okay? So we'll see. Actually, sometimes when you look at it on the big screen, it's a little bit more precise, so it works a little bit better. So, yeah, that works actually pretty good. So we're just going to leave that as it is. Okay, so this is working pretty good. This is an opportunity for you to take your PacMan and kind of take him through all of the tunnels, make sure that he fits. You may have to shrink your PacMan to a smaller size, but this works pretty good. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go to File, I'm going to save to my computer, and then we're done for the day. If you need to look at your cheat sheet to make sure that you're putting the right codes in, that it has to look exactly the same, except for the numbers. You're going to have to play around with the numbers yourself. As you can see, some of our PacMan, sometimes he's getting stuck. We may have to play around with a little bit with his costume to stop doing that, but we're not going to do that today. Good luck, everybody.